Hello class, my name is Tyrell Morris and I will be discussing Chapter 8 from our textbook, Radio and Digital Audio. Radio has evolved considerably over the years, so we will talk about the history of radio and its progression into what it is today. We'll begin by talking about the history. If you'll follow along in the PowerPoint presentation, you'll see that Thomas Alva Edison invented the phonograph in 1877. This was the first recording device. He recorded himself reading Mary Had a Little Lamb in 1927, and that began the audio recording evolution around the world. Audio quality on the phonograph was terrible at best, but bringing music, theater, politics, and education into the living rooms of thousands of people was a game changer at that time. As you see on the next slide, on December 24, 1906, Reginald Fessenden performed the first radio transmission of actual sound from Ocean Bluff, Brant Rock, Massachusetts, when he played O Holy Night on his violin, which was broadcast to ships out at sea. He also read a famous passage from the Bible, Luke 2:14, which says, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." As we get into the development of radio through the years, we'll begin in the 1920s. The first radio news program began in 1920 in Detroit at WWJ, which is still an all-news radio station today. The recorded music industry started its decline in the 1920s, due in part to World War I, and the invention of radio, which started to take off at the end of the 1920s. By the 1930s, radio was in its golden age, exerting influence around the world and making its prominence in mass media. By the end of the 1930s, more than 80% of Americans owned a radio. By the 1950s, the radio DJ was born, and America's top 40 format ruled the airways. Moving right along to the 1980s and 1990s, this is when CDs became mainstream, which ended the long-standing analog era of music recordings. On the next slide, we'll talk about analog versus digital audio. The difference between analog and digital audio is how the audio is reproduced. Sound is represented as a wave. A radio wave is an electromagnetic wave transmitted by an antenna. Radio waves have different frequencies by tuning a radio receiver to a specific frequency so listeners can pick up that distinct signal. Analog recordings make an equivalent physical representation of sound waves on a physical object such as a disc or a magnetic tape. While the quality of sound has been developed over the years, one of the noticeable improvements in the broadcast of radio waves was in the split of the waves to create a stereo sound. For the physical radio, constant advances have refined the sound quality, which also shrink the size of radios, which allow for more portability. In the early 80s, digital audio hit mainstream in the form of the CD, which was marketed as small and durable with near-perfect sound. Consumers quickly embraced CD technology as prices dropped and the music industry transitioned to a digital era in CD music production. Digital audio technology advanced with the introduction of compression, which allowed the shrinking of audio files into more manageable sizes. This led to what we know now as the MP3 format. Now we'll talk about what most of us use today, and that is on-demand and live streaming audio. On-demand music streaming allows users to specify a particular song or artist and immediately hear it. Platforms like Spotify and Google Play Music operate like a jukebox, whereas listeners can build a playlist with the exact songs or artists that they want to hear. Live streaming is the live transmission of music or programming over the internet. Streaming companies like Pandora or iTunes Radio allow users to create their own channel of music based on songs, artists, music genres, or even moods of music that they like. According to RAB's 2016 report, the two largest revenue producers in digital radio are on-demand music streamer Spotify and live streaming radio service Pandora. Pandora gets 80% of its revenue from advertising, whereas Spotify gets 90% of its revenue from subscriptions. Let's talk about satellite radio. SiriusXM satellite radio is a subscription-based radio service that uses satellite technology to deliver its programming. This service uses geosynchronous satellite technology to deliver its programming so users can hear their favorite stations no matter where they are in the US. Most new vehicles come standard with satellite radio now, since it's popular among travelers. There were more than 22 million satellite radio subscribers in 2010. That figure has steadily grown to more than 39 million in 2015. The newest trend in audio production and recording is podcasting. Podcasting is a digital audio recording similar to episodic or themed radio programs, which can be downloaded onto a mobile device, computer, or a media player. Podcasts can be listened to when an individual has the time, making podcasting a convenience medium for those who listen to them. Anyone with a computer or mobile device and an internet connection can create a podcast. Podcasting has been steadily growing over the past several years, changing how many people listen to information and entertainment type recording. In 2014, 2.6 billion podcasts were downloaded from the podcast hosting service Libsyn, and 63% of those were downloaded to mobile devices. Finally, most people only think about the DJ when they think of radio jobs, but there are many options for radio careers. A degree in mass communication is no longer the requirement to get an in radio. As long as you have a thorough understanding of radio, communications, broadcasting, or business, you're pretty much golden. Listed here on this last slide are a few of the career opportunities that are available in radio. Well, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to list them in the discussion board and I'll get back to you. Thank you.